everything is it's just to me it is a privilege to meet so many different people and to come into their communities and just spend a little bit of time with people who are willing to sit and talk to you. And it's really there's a real connection with people there, and it is what keeps bringing me back. And it's the kind of connection that I find you don't get everywhere in the world, and you don't get it in other areas of the world. And I think people are very connected to who they are in Africa.
So thank you and welcome to the African Overland Journal. Thank you.
Hi, Mishka. How are you? Good.
I'm good. And you? Thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
No problem.
I'm really looking forward to our chat.
You too?
Yeah. For everybody who doesn't know, this is Sinead Rocks. She is one of our favorite travelers and has continuously come back to Africa. And that is the first thing that I'd like us to touch on today. Why is Africa so important to you, and why do you continue to come back?
So it's kind of it's a bit intangible, some of it. You know, when I was a kid, I think like a lot of kids in the West, we were introduced to the wildlife. I think the wildlife is the first thing most of us heard, kind of David Attenborough and all those documentaries. So I always loved animals, and my first reason was to come, like a lot of people, to see the animals. But once I came, it was the way I feel when I'm in Africa. I know I said to a friend of mine from Africa recently, I just feel human when I'm here. I feel alive, and I don't really know how to explain it. It's the pace of life is very different in Europe. It's like a rat race, you know, and you come to Africa and it's a slower pace of life. But it's not only about the people are completely different. The value system is completely different, and it's such a beautiful place. It calms me. And I feel in touch with who I am while I'm there. And then there's so many places to go, and there's so much to explore. You know, other places you can visit somewhere in Europe and it's nice, but I would never really feel the need to go back twice. But Africa's a continent, you know, I mean, there are so many different countries to go to, and even within one country, there are so many different places to explore. It's like no time is ever enough. I can always go back and spend more time. So there's just a draw to it. And I heard other people told me this before I came. They said you will leave a part of your heart in Africa and want to come back. And I've never heard anybody say that they don't want to go back. I'm sure they're out there, but it's something. It just seems to be a common thread. I don't know. I think I told you before. My doctor said to me once, I have an autoimmune illness. That can have me really run down. And the very first time I spent a few months in Africa, I came back and he said, I've never seen you look so well. And he said to me, is it the cradle of life thing? I said, I don't know. But it's, I definitely, the way I felt the first time I was there, I definitely just knew I was going to keep coming back. And every time I go back, no matter what happens, I want to go back again. So there's just a draw. It's hard to describe, but there is definitely a draw to it that I've never felt anywhere else.
I mean, I think you've articulated it really beautifully. I mean, I think in our initial interview, you said when you go to Africa, it feels like you're actually living and you're part of something bigger. I know that I personally feel sometimes when I see something in Africa and I go to a new national park or something like that, or just stand like just up the road here, we have something, I'm based in Johannesburg, and we have something called Northcliffe Hill. And it's almost like the highest peak in the West Rand, and you can see the whole of Johannesburg, and you just see these pops of jacaranda trees, and it's beautiful. You realize how small you are and how little space you make up, but what a privilege it is to be able to see something like that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And you know, you've mentioned the wildlife being obviously a big draw for people. And you graciously shared some of your amazing wildlife images that you've taken. What are your some of your favorites that you've managed to capture? Is there anything that you're looking to capture on your next visit that you're coming to bring now? So let me know.
I mean, there are some amazing ones. Probably the best thing I've ever captured, there was a picture I sent you. It was in the Serengeti. There were lions in the foreground and elephants in the background. And that was actually, I have a whole video of that, which I actually tried to upload for you, but it wouldn't upload. There was lions, and the elephants started coming in the background, and the elephants, basically there was a standoff between the lions and the elephants eventually chased the lions away. But it was great because we were in the truck, and the lines actually ran right up to the truck, so they were close enough underneath the window to touch, because the elephants chase them. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. There are just some like amazing sightings, and they tend to happen where you don't expect. You can go, you can park the truck and sit there for 2 hours and see nothing. And sometimes you will just maybe look outside at night and there'll be something outside, or there were the last time I was in Botswana, we had been looking for a leopard. Leopards are hard to find. We hadn't seen any. The morning we were packing up, we were just pulling out of the camp, and right in the tree, right outside the camp where we've been every day, was a male leopard just sitting there. And I had actually dropped my camera. My camera had gone in underneath the chair. I didn't get the camera out because I knew I was going to miss it, and I just sat and looked. And sometimes the best things you don't capture on camera. And I think it's really important to just look with your eyes sometimes, and just because if I had started fumbling under the seat for that camera, I would have missed what was actually going on in front of me. And my friend said to me, "Did you get it?" And I said no, because I just wanted to watch. Sometimes, and I kind of have the privilege of having gone back a few times, and the first time you go, it's all about get it on camera, and I understand that because I was the same. But I think the more I go back, the more I just want to look with my own eyes, even though it is great. It's great to get the shots, and it's great. And I think I told you when I was looking back through those shots for you the other day, I was saying, oh, I forgot about that. And it is really nice to look back through them. But some things I think just have to be watched with your own eyes. And but there are some really amazing things, that you see. And I think it's the unexpected in Africa. Things just jump up that you don't think are going to happen,
I mean, yeah, the pictures that you shared with us were really brilliant. We've shared some on our social media, and to obviously advertise the webinar. But I get what you're saying, is that you get to go back and relive it a little bit, but also the memory sticks with you forever. You're always going to have that moment where, yes, you didn't pick up the camera to capture it, but you've got it with you. And I guess that's what Africa does to you. It gives you moments to carry with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you've been traveling since your early teens, basically. What are some, and you've seen Africa multiple times, what are some of the ways that you've actually seen Africa evolve from the first time that you came to even up to your last?
I think it's become so much more. It's become more mainstream. The world is getting so much smaller. I remember when I was a kid in Ireland, safaris were for rich people who, dressed like David Livingstone in their khakis, and it was only kind of rich people who could afford to take those flights. And I think the world has become so much more accessible. Even I first came to Africa 10 years ago, and it wasn't as touristy as it is now. And in a way, that's a good thing, obviously, for the economy and everything. But it's expanded so much. The last time I was there, I remember I was in the airport, and I was actually watching a family with these small kids, and the kids were there. Oh, Mom, this safari wasn't as good as our last one. I'm like, your last one? The kid was about 6, and it just occurred to me that the world is so much more accessible, and you can just it's the outside. People are coming in everywhere in places that used to be untouched. And I think it's happened so fast. And I think it just puts me in mind of, how much we need to protect this world. And, because I think Africa is kind of one of those kind of final frontiers. There's not many places in the world left like that with that space, with that wildlife. There's, I think, tourism is damaging, the world as well. And I think, we have to be careful and be conscious. And I think that really is, it's just, I went to Vic Falls for the first time 10 years ago. And there were tourists there, but last time I was there, you couldn't see the falls for the amount of people standing in front of it, and that kind of, it's become so much more accessible to people, which is great, because people who never would have been able to travel before can travel, but the world is getting smaller, and I think we do need to respect it and protect it, and I think that was what really stuck out to me, especially last year when I was there. It's become so much more accessible.
I love the point that you're touching on, that yes, it's accessible, but we also need to find a way to make it
Yeah.
sustainable. What are some of the ways that you travel sustainably and
Well, I think one of the most, it's a simple thing, but try to travel light, because the more we carry with us, the more fuel you burn, the more chance there is of leaving rubbish behind. I mean, there are obvious things, plastic is a huge thing, and I think in a lot of African countries it's even illegal to have plastic bags now. You certainly can't bring them into the national parks, which people mightn't know. You can be fined for bringing plastic bags into some of the parks. I think though it's more, to me, about respect, like an attitude of respect, because ethical tourism is about respecting people as well. It's not, there are obvious things like reduce and reusing and recycling, all that kind of stuff, but I think it's about an attitude of respect. We are guests in the countries we're in, and I think to bring the best of yourself. Don't be that tourist that nobody wants to see coming. We've a huge problem in Europe with over tourism, and it's becoming hostile there. Our country's now telling tourists to stay away. And we don't, because of antisocial behavior, because of over tourism, because of people being run out of their own cities by tourists behaving badly. And I think you don't want that for everywhere. I don't want to see that happening in Africa, and then you don't want to see that happening anywhere. But I think really it's just about being sustainable, ethical. To me, bring the attitude that you would want. Don't behave, if you wouldn't want someone coming into your home behaving a certain way, you don't do it in somebody else's. And just to be sustainable, try to stay in local. There are hotels in Africa that are run locally. They're staffed by local people. You have your big Western chains as well. I know a lot of the tour companies give information about where you'll be staying. Ask them, where will you be staying, and look into the information. Buy locally. Try to buy from local people rather than the big supermarkets. It's not always avoidable, but I think, look, in Africa, okay, you can't, if you're, say, in Europe, you can be sustainable by walking or cycling. Okay, you can't do that in Africa. You're not going to cycle across Namibia. So some things are unavoidable, but I think it's just about minimizing. Go with an attitude of respect, be aware, and just try to minimize what you're doing. And if everybody did that, we would make an impact if everybody was mindful. Yeah.
Oh, you've articulated that so well. Thank you so much. And such a good message to share with people.
Yeah.
I think another thing that you could also do is inspire others to travel who haven't taken the leap to explore Africa. For somebody considering their first experience of Africa, how would you prepare them? What would you say to them to prepare them for the experience?
So it's definitely, it's not the same as you're 2 weeks in the sun somewhere. So it's an adventure. You're going to be tired. It's tiring. I would say, I would think you need to go with an open mind. You don't know what's going to happen. You can have all the plans in the world, but it's it's a long journey, especially overland. And it's a long journey. They're long days. You're going to be tired. You're going to get dirty. You might be having to pitch a tent every day. What I would say is, it is an adventure. If you're not adventurous minded, it might not be for you, but I would say give it a go, because it's such a unique place. Give it a go once. If you think you are able for it, if you think you're up to it, go once and see what you think. It's a huge place, and there's so many different things you can do. I would say get in touch with a company like African Overland Tours, someone like that who you can talk to, even if you're not sure what you want to do. Get in touch with them, because they know everything about everything, and say, look, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And they'll talk you through everything. Do your research on the places. I would say, if you've decided to do a tour, you get a richer experience if you know where you're going. I would say, so when you see your tour itinerary and it says we're going to this place, look it up, find out what it is, maybe watch a documentary about it before you go. And it gives you, that carries on after you go home. I mean, I remember, like I said, my first introduction to wildlife was probably through BBC documentaries here. And you go to the place, and then when you come home and see another one, you're like, wow, I was there, and now I know exactly what they're talking about. So I think just kind of try, bring it in to your world, and don't just go and take the photo and not know where you are. Actually do your research and immerse yourself in it, and ask the questions and just talk to the people who can help. But definitely, that we've so much information available to us now. You can pick anywhere in the world and say, I'd like to go there. I'm going to go and talk to somebody who's been there, who knows what to do, and you will find the information. But definitely for Africa, it is an adventure. It's not Europe. It's not 2 weeks in the sun. You're going to be tired. You need a break. You need a break after the break. So you need a holiday after the holiday. But it's definitely, I would say, definitely go and give it a go if you only do it once in your life, because I mean a lot of people won't go back. I go back. I know most people won't do that, but yeah, it's definitely it's something really different, and it's the one place I would advise anyone to just go once. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, you've mentioned working with obviously African Overland Tours to help you plan your tours. What's the booking process like, and why do you enjoy working with African Overland Tours?
It's the fact that I can I mean the very first time I went, I contacted Andrew and I said I'm going to Africa. I think I've been looking at this tour. What's it all about? And I think once I'd been there a few times, I mean I can book myself if I want to. The more experience you get, I mean I have booked things by myself, and in a way I enjoy looking into the things myself and seeing, but sometimes I need to kind of put my head together with somebody else and say, okay, I've done this but I want to do this. And that's what I did this year with Lee. She was fantastic. Hi Lee. And she I said to her, I'm looking at this tour but I'd like to add this, and I think that the more you go, I have the benefit of being able to say I could do without this, but I really want to spend more time here or there. But they are really, even if you know nothing, if you know absolutely nothing, they are the people to talk to, because they will get it out of you what you want to do. You mightn't be the classic is Cape Town to Vic Falls, and it's a great one to do because it covers all the highlights, but it might not be what you're looking for. So if you really talk to them, and they make the booking process so smooth. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the really lovely compliments about Andrew and Lee. Lee is the one who actually told me to contact you for webinar. Like your insights would be amazing. So, okay, thanks, Lee. You've done various types of tours and overlanders, including camping and accommodated. For you, what are the key differences, and which ones do you prefer?
Okay, so it's very seasonal. For starters, I don't like camping in the hot wet season. I've done it. It's so uncomfortable. I just find it really uncomfortable. And this is being real. I've camped and done accommodated in both seasons. So camping in your summer, the nights can be freezing. Which people don't realize. The first time I camped in Tanzania, we were on the edge of the Ngorongoro crater, and it was August, and I had been warned it would be cold, but I hadn't been warned how cold it would be. I did not have the right stuff with me. I literally, it was so cold. The next morning I could hardly move my muscles. I had just been shivering, and we were all the same, the whole group. Nobody knew how cold it was going to be. So yeah, it can be, you're going to be camping, you need to really just be aware of what season it is, what the temperatures are going to be like. Camping is amazing in another way because you see things you wouldn't see, otherwise. I mean, I had an experience. It was kind of scary, but the first time I was in the Okavango Delta, I was camping, and we had an elephant, a young male elephant had wandered into the camp, and he was causing chaos in the camp. But he was behind my tent that night, kicking the back of the tent, which was really scary. But that wouldn't have, no, for better or worse, that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't in a tent. He was outside the door most days. I have all this video footage of him just outside the door. But it was kind of, it was scary in a way as well, because everyone had to be really careful coming out of the tents, and but you don't get that up close to nature in a room. Another time I was in, it was only last year, I was in Moremi, and the middle of the night I heard this sound, and it's like that sound like a saw going through wood, and it's a male leopard, and he's right outside the door, like right outside the mesh. So you won't catch that in a room. It's not going to happen. So in terms of getting up close to nature, definitely camping is is where it is, you know. But you know, the trips are very long. They're long, they're dirty, they're dusty. When you're in accommodation, you know, it can be nice to just get off the truck, go to your room. You know, there's aircon, there's all these, it's being realistic, you know, there are some people who won't want to go 3 or 4 weeks without some kind of aircon. You can go, you've electricity, you can charge your devices, all those, you know, home comfort kind of things. So definitely it just depends on, I would camp in the, when the nights are colder. I actually prefer camping. I don't like camping when the nights are really warm, can't sleep. So it just, yeah, it really just depends. And then on your level of ability as well, you know, you might not be up to putting up a tent every day. You know, if you're tired after a long drive, you know, having to put up your own dome tent might not be for you. But it's good that there are all these options, because there is something for everybody. And then, I mean, camping is so much more economical as well. I mean, it can be the difference between affording a trip and not affording a trip. So I would say definitely don't let camping put you off if you really want to do it. And I mean, it is good fun. They're just completely different experiences. So, but I do think there's something for everybody, and be very mindful of, yeah, the season makes a big difference to whether you're camping or not. And the season makes a big difference to whether you can stand, I think, not having those creature comforts or not. So yeah, I mean, I would do either. Yeah.
I really like the way that you phrase it, because I mean, there's lots of people who would choose accommodation purely based on comfort, but might not think about the fact that I might be missing out on a big wildlife opportunity here.
Yeah.
You know, and this is a very good way to look at it. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Given your extensive experience with overland tours in Africa, could you tell me about some of the different routes that you've done? You've mentioned obviously the classic Cape to Vic route. You've done East Africa, etc. So what are some of your favorite routes, and why did you love them so much?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Cape Town to Vic Falls is a fantastic route. It's probably the first one that everybody will encourage people to do. It's for a reason. It brings you to, you know, some of the really key places. A lot of it is spent in Namibia. It's around a 20 or 21 day tour, and about 10 days are in Namibia. So 50% of it is in Namibia. So there's a lot of desert in it. If you're not looking to be in the desert, it's probably not for you, but you can do them in sections as well, you know, which is great. But yeah, I mean, you start in South Africa, you go all through Namibia, you have your desert experience, then you're up into Botswana, into the Okavango Delta, Chobe National Park, you've Etosha National Park in Namibia as well, and then you're finishing off in Victoria Falls. So it's fun. It's a great one. It's a great introduction to Southern Africa, to the different cultures. And I've done it both ways. What I found interesting was I had a completely different experience coming the other way from Vic Falls down to Cape Town. There's two ways of looking at it. You can the desert experience can be quite, it's tiring. It's hot, it's dusty, and especially if you're there in the summer. I mean, last time I was there, we had kind of 42 degrees. The heat was unreal. So if you go from Cape Town to Vic Falls, you get the desert done early, and then you're into, which I find the hardest part, and then you're into the Okavango Delta, which is really completely different. You're into that kind of lush landscape. It's more kind of relaxing, and then you finish in Vic Falls. If you come from Vic Falls down, you're doing basically your Botswana experience first, and then you're finishing off in the desert. And if you've had a really long trip, that last section might actually be difficult. And I know people who've done it, and they said it was actually difficult finishing with the 2 weeks in the desert. Just, it depends what way you look at it. And as well, from a wildlife point of view, I think you're better coming from Cape Town up to Botswana, because the wildlife highlights get better. I've never been anywhere better than the Okavango Delta for wildlife, and it's one of the most reliable year-round. You know, you get different sightings, but it's one of the most reliable locations year-round, where you can go to. If you start in Namibia, you can go to Etosha National Park, and you can see nothing in Etosha sometimes, or you can see everything. I mean, the first time I was in Etosha, it was September. We saw everything. It was amazing. It was your classic round the water hole. You had elephants, giraffes, zebras. It's like that classic picture Impala, where it's like Noah's Ark. You know, we were so lucky. But then the next time I was there was December. There was nothing. I mean, 2 days we saw nothing. And some people were really disappointed, you know, obviously. And it's something to be aware of, you know, the seasons affect what you're going to see as well. But if you're going from, what happened was we saw nothing in Natasha, but because we were going up, then we had amazing sightings in Botswana. So it depends. If you want your wildlife highlights towards the end, it can actually, or if you want to build up your wildlife highlights, it can actually make a difference what direction you go in. But I mean, they're both good. It's just these observations that I make when I've done the different ones. I say, yeah, that falls differently. Yeah, so even the same route done the other way around can make a big difference. And then I did East Africa from Nairobi. So I came from Kenya down to Zimbabwe. So that's you start in Nairobi, you go to the Serengeti and the Ngorongoro crater. You go out to Zanzibar, and then you come down through Lake Malawi, Zambia, South Luangwa National Park, which is one of the most amazing places I've ever been. It's absolutely stunning. And down through Zambia back into Zimbabwe, and you finish in Vic Falls. So that's the other one. And then I did a South Africa. What happened was the first time I came, I had 2 months and I was actually supposed to be doing the whole route from Vic Falls all the way up to Nairobi. And I couldn't, we had it all booked and I couldn't get a yellow fever vaccine. The doctors here wouldn't give me a yellow fever vaccine because they were worried about me getting sick from the live vaccine. So the first year I had to come back and rearrange it. So I spent my second month in South Africa. So I did, I did about 6 weeks in South Africa, and I did a tour 3 weeks in South Africa, and then I did an extra tour all up the west coast of South Africa, which is not as usual. I think if we saw one person, I did it for 9 days. I think you just wouldn't see people. It was so isolated, and it was amazing all up through Namaqualand, Lambert's Bay, kind of the shipwreck coast, all up kind of as far as the Richtersveld, Honda Clip Bay, all these little towns along the way. It was amazing, and it was so different. I'd been about 10 weeks in Africa, and there'd been so many people, and this last week was just so peaceful, and it was completely different. I'm really glad I did that, and it was amazing because it was the kind of places I would never have found on my own. Never, ever, ever. You would need somebody who knows it to bring you there, and to bring you to these places, and it was amazing. So yeah, that's they're the three kind of, yeah, Cape to Vic Falls, East Africa, Western South Africa. Yeah, and then I did one private safari in Botswana as well. It was like 2 weeks just in Botswana, which was amazing. Because it's my favorite place, so I went back to drill down into that, and that was a real once in a lifetime kind of thing, because it's incredibly expensive. It really is.
How did the actual private safari in Botswana compare to the overland tours that you've done?
It's night and day, because it's night and day, because it's all about you. You know, you're in a group, and when you're in a group on a truck, there's a set schedule, and you have to compromise with everybody else. And so obviously it is what it is. You know, it's obviously, if private safari is all about you, it's, you know, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And it's just, you get all the attention. You're just with the guide all the time, and you're just sitting together, and you've just all these days to just sit with that person and just see everything. And it's really, you know, it's really individual. And it's a great experience, and it was a great way to just go back to an area that I really wanted to drill down into, and it was amazing. But look, if you can do it. But definitely it's not essential. You know, the groups are, you know, they're great, and I mean you get to see everything, and you know the guides are great, and yeah, you know, it's just, you know, in a group. Yeah, you do have to compromise, you know, and it's not all about you, but you know that going into a group, you know, so it's just, they're just two completely different experiences. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, you've mentioned the importance of guides in your experience and how having been so beneficial to your actual tour. Can you take me through your guides that you worked with and how they enhanced your overall experience?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with some fantastic guys who I'm still friends with to this day. You know, people I met 10 years ago, and I was talking to them yesterday. You know, so it's the guides that they work so hard. I think you have to be a people person to be in that business. If you couldn't deal with people, you couldn't be around groups of people like that all the time. But they just have that knowledge that if you went in there by yourself, you wouldn't have that person there to tell you what's what. And they just they keep you going, and they have all the information. And it's one of my favorite things is actually just being able to talk to the guides, get to know them, hear their stories. I mean, they're some of the best storytellers, because anybody who's done all of these group tours, they're going to have some of the best stories you've ever heard. And they're really the best guides are willing to communicate about things. And look, people are people. Everyone's not the same. Some guides are quieter. Some guides don't. I've met guides who don't say a word, and they're there to do their job, and that's okay. The best guides are the ones who get in, and they're really willing to communicate. And I think it's really important, if you're going on a tour, respect your guides. They're human beings. You're one person. They have maybe 20 people that they're dealing with, and everybody wants a piece of them all the time. They get tired. They're working really hard. Every time you get to a place, the group goes off for a walk or sightseeing, they're immediately, they hit the ground running. They have the tables out, they're getting lunch ready there. They do not stop. They don't stop. And your driver has your life in their hands when they're driving that truck. They're doing it for long days. They're doing it in harsh conditions, really bad roads. I would say just really respect them, and they're amazing people, and they do a fantastic job. And they do a fantastic job of keeping a group of people together for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and they're away from their families for maybe 6 months at a time. So I think they're really great people, and they work really, really hard. And it's real work. It's not a 9 to 5, and they're available all the time. So yeah, I would just say absolutely, they're there to do a job, but they are human. And it's a unique, it's not like somebody sitting in an office. They're out there with people all the time, and you really get a chance to get to know people. And definitely, one of my favorite things has been all the guides I've met over the years, and to just sit with them and talk to them and hear their stories and hear who they are and how they experience that job. So yeah, but they're great. They're some of the best people. And like I said, some of I have like friends to this day who are guides. Yeah.
Gives you such a good human interaction.
Yeah.
Which is really, really nice. Apart from obviously the wildlife that you're going to see, etc.
Yeah.
Being able to connect with that guide, because you're spending so much time with them, being able to connect with them on a different level it's quite rewarding on your part.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
You traveled solo most of your life. You say that you always travel solo.
Yeah.
And, we've obviously had lots of people who have concerns about traveling solo.
Yeah.
What are some of your tips as a solo female traveler that you share about going to Africa?
Yeah. I think, I mean, I haven't gone solo, as in I've never on my own. I've always gone with, a tour group. Okay. And I think one of the, I mean, look, a tour group is a really good solution to that problem, if you want to call it a problem. You can fly there solo, get on a group tour, and you have the best of both worlds, because you have that bit of security where you're not alone. You have somebody guiding you, but you don't have to be joined at the hip to a group either. You can go off by yourself, and you can decide what you want to do as well. I think I was concerned at first, and I would say the same advice I gave earlier: talk to people who know, do your research, ask people what where you shouldn't go, what you shouldn't do. And I find the first time I was in Cape Town, I was concerned. I think over here we hear South Africa's dangerous. Africa's dangerous. I think that the very first time I was talking to a security guard at the hotel I was staying in, and we were talking about it, and he gave me really great advice about where to go and what to do and what not to do. And I think, you know, people, nobody wants anybody to get hurt there or for anything to happen. You know, there are dangerous places here. Like I'm here in Dublin. You can walk down the street here and get mugged, or, you know, it's a human thing that happens. You know, it's not only Africa, it's not only anywhere. I think, you know, just be sensible, ask people who know, you know, and make the most of, you know, other people. Again, that human connection, talk to people. Most people don't want anyone to get hurt. Most people don't want anyone to feel lost. And, you know, the help is there. I don't, you know, women travel to around the world all the time. I mean, yeah, look, bad things happen everywhere. It doesn't happen all the time. It's part of, I suppose it's part of the risk you take as a human. Every time we go outside the door, we don't know what's going to happen, but you can prepare yourself, you know, talk to the people who know. I would say I've never felt unsafe. One thing that can happen a little bit, you can get a little bit hassled if walking alone. I don't even think it's as a female. I think it's because people rely on tourism. So in Africa, so I find there are certain places where, you know, I'll be walking along the street and you'll just have people coming up to you all the time trying to sell you something, or offering to give you a ride in a taxi is a big thing, especially Victoria Falls. I can't walk down the road in Victoria Falls. A guy will come up, do you want a lift in a taxi? I would say learn how to say no, thank you, politely and firmly. Most people will back off once you say that. I've never had any problems with anybody who wouldn't go away once I said, you know, no thank you. And I would say just be aware, that's just people. It's people trying to make a living, they do the tourist, and they say, okay, the tourist has money. It's real. I mean, it's realistic. You know, they are going to approach, and they are going to see if they can get, you know, some business. But it's, you know, if you say no thank you. One place I found very difficult was Zanzibar. I could not walk on the beach in Zanzibar without being, I actually felt hassled in Zanzibar, and it's the only place and I wouldn't go back to. So it was very difficult. I couldn't walk on the beach. I didn't enjoy it at all, because there were just guys coming up constantly. Like one would come up, I'd say no thank you, and the next one would come up, and the next one would come up, and the next one. So it's the one place, and I really couldn't do anything about it. You know, it's just say no thank you. It's because it's the tourist thing. You know, it's because tourists are coming in, and, you know, that's the world order now, that people are seeing this is a way of eking out a living, and it's understandable. But it's yeah, you know, it's real. That's a realistic view. It does happen. You can get a little bit hassled, and maybe they wouldn't approach a man like that. I don't know. You know, I don't know, because I've always been a woman by myself. Yeah, it can happen, but I've never had anything. I've never felt unsafe. I've never felt that anyone was threatening me in any way. It was the most it was I just can't get people to stop coming up to me, and, you know, but yeah, it's that's in the minority as well. I mean, I've been all over the world. I've been all over Africa. That was like two places. Vic Falls, because it's just so touristy. You know, it's Vic Falls is such a tourist haven. You just get people chancing it, you know, anything they can. I try to just engage with people and be friendly with them and say, yeah, you know, but no thanks. And sometimes most people will just, if you have a little chat with them, they'll move on. Say no thank you politely, firmly. You know, you might have to walk away. A couple of times I've just had to walk away. But it's not a huge thing. I would say don't let those kind of concerns, they're much smaller, don't let them outweigh, you know, your desire to go. It's only a very small part, and most people do want to keep you safe. And I've never met anyone who made me feel threatened. And I've never met anyone who wasn't willing to talk me through how to stay safer or how to feel safer, you know.
So of course, you said you're getting on the plane solo, you're getting to the destination solo, but once you meet the group, you're actually not really alone, which is really nice. Have you met other solo female travelers like you that you?
A few. I tend to meet more solo males. It might be just by chance, but yeah, I've met a few. Yeah, I mean, there's usually a good mixture, you know, couples and solo males and solo females. You know, you meet everybody. So yeah.
it gives you a good sense of camaraderie on the road, and you just become friends with everybody, which is really nice. There's been some situations that have been a little bit uncomfortable, you know, but at the end of the day, like all awkward social cues, you kind of just have to push past it, which is really cool. Is there any, I mean, on your first trip to Africa, were there any things that you brought along your trip that you didn't really need, or just some packing tips that maybe you could, you know, help the next traveler?
Yeah, I mean, look, you will always bring more than you need. It's and even to this day, I bring more than I need, but I still only bring half what I used to. I would say pack light, especially clothing. It's so when you get there, it's so warm, and you're going to get so dusty and dirty. I would say you'll probably end up switching between maybe your most comfortable 2 changes of clothes, maybe 3, and I think everybody makes a mistake of bringing more clothes than they're going to need. It's because you need to be comfortable because it's so warm and you're on the go so much, and it's the one thing I hear everybody saying, I didn't need these clothes. You know, people keep just washing the same the same couple of things that are really comfortable. There are a few things I would definitely bring. Little things like if you're on an overland truck, a lock for your locker is a handy one, because you'll have a locker that you and you can put a lock on it to secure your bag. A washing line, like a bungee cord style washing line that you can create a washing line anywhere you are. You can stretch it between 2 trees, or between if you're in accommodation between the door and the bath handles or anything like that. It's a handy one if you need to wash something. And I would say temperature wise, if you're there in if you were over there, especially if you're going to be camping in the winter, you really need to be warm at night. And I would say probably the best thing is thin kind of, you know, a warm under armor kind of I can't think of the word, but you know, the warm can't think, but the light layers, rather than trying to bring maybe heavy blankets or something, because they're harder to transport. But it definitely just, and also, you know, you're going to be carrying that bag is going up and down the steps of the truck. The steps can be fairly high, your locker can be fairly high. Just think it's you who's going to be lifting that, so just try to keep it as light as you possibly can. And really, you know, you're not in the middle of nowhere all the time. You will be every few days. You'll stop at, you know, like modern style supermarkets, and I think people are afraid that they won't be anywhere that they can get you know, if they forget anything, there's always somewhere you can pick it up. So I would say, yeah, just start light, and you can pick up anything you need as you go, but just really, really keep it light. I mean, I always travel just under 10 kgs. It's usually around 9.5. And I wouldn't go any heavier than that, because I wouldn't even be able to lift it. So I'm only 5'2", so I wouldn't. I've had bags in the past that were bigger than me and they were higher than me. So I don't do that anymore, and it's just something that comes with time. You get used to it, but definitely less than you think you're going to need. Yeah.
Than you think that you're going to need. That's a good guide. I mean, we previously touched on the wildlife, landscapes. Was there any cultures and local communities that you experienced that deeply impacted you when you were traveling through Africa?
You know, everywhere you go it's so different. You know, I've had such a good time meeting different people, and you know, everybody is so different. I really enjoy talking to everybody, and I like I get everybody to teach me a few words of their local language, and it's really great to talk to different people. There was one that just stands out. It was when I was up the west coast of South Africa. There was up in Namaqualand, there was the place that we stayed. It was a big kind of farm ranch kind of thing, and the lady who ran it, she probably had about 40 rooms in the place, but it was completely empty, and it was really sad. We were her last guests that were ever going to stay there. She was actually closing down because of the way the economy had gone. They were closing down, and they were moving back out to Cape Town, and we were just the last guests to ever stay there. And it was just that whole the west coast, it was much more about meeting people in small communities. You know, you go to like a really, really small town with maybe, you know, 20 people living in it, and maybe one local restaurant, and that's where everybody gathered, and it was really nice just meeting people in really, really small places that I would never have known existed. But I remember that lady, and I often still think about it to this day. I hope she's doing well, and it was really touching to be there, like to be her last guest. And we were walking along all the rooms, and she said, you can pick whatever room you want because they're all empty. And it was really sad, but it was you know, they were moving for the best, and you know, they were just, I suppose it was, you know, that was somebody going through the change in their life, and it was kind of a privilege to be there with them and to talk about it. And she said, you know, you're the last guest we're ever going to talk to here. So, but it's, everything is, it's just, to me, it is a privilege to meet so many different people and to come into their communities and just spend a little bit of time with people who are willing to sit and talk to you. And yeah, it's really, there's a real connection with people there, and it is what keeps bringing me back. And it's the kind of connection that I find you don't get everywhere in the world, and you don't get it in other areas of the world. And I think people are very connected to who they are in Africa. You don't get that so much. I think the pace of life is too fast in other places, and I think it's not on an individual level, and it's not that there's nobody who would sit and have a conversation with you in Europe, but in general, there's we're more rushed, where everything is about, you know, getting to the next thing. And I think there's a lot to be said for just slowing down and remembering who you are. And yeah, there's a human experience in Africa that I haven't experienced anywhere else. So it's really, I would say, everybody, every community I come into contact with there, I try to make the best of it and make the most of it, and talk to people. And you know, you can turn everything into an experience, you know.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. It's really beautiful. I really appreciate it. You've planned a trip for December, I believe, to Kruger, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and the Delta. Could you tell me what you're most excited for, and what highlights you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so I'm most excited about I'm doing more Zimbabwe this time, because I've actually only been in Vic Falls before. So this tour goes up into Zimbabwe, into Hawaii National Park and Matopos National Park and the Great Sim ruins and all that. And I've been waiting to do that for a few years. It's something I just kept missing out on. Whatever way my tours would go, I didn't have the time to spend time in Zimbabwe. So that's going to be a new one for me. Kruger I've done before, but we didn't, it wasn't a great time of year. We didn't have very good sighting. So I'm looking forward to going back into Kruger. And Botswana is just my favorite place. So I'm looking forward to going back into the Okavango Delta, and I've arranged to go back in and spend another few days at the end of that, go into Moremi and Kwai as well. I can't go there without going in. I know I said it to Lee. It's just the most amazing place I've ever been, and it's a fantastic. I'm going in December. December is a fantastic time in there. It's the lush kind of green season. You get a lot of birds. I remember the last time I was there in December, there were so many eagles flying over my head. I couldn't look down. It was amazing. I was looking at the sky all the time, saying, I can't believe it, there's an eagle over my head every time. And these are the kind of things you don't think of. You mightn't think of what's up in the sky. People look for the lions and the elephants, but look up as well. Look everywhere. And it's great. It's what I loved about this time was that I've done it so much now. I can go back and I can say this is exactly what I want to do. And so that's this year. So yeah.
Well, I hope that you're going to enjoy your tour and have the best time again in Africa, and we'll probably be seeing you way more often. One last question for you. Many people might only see Africa as one entity, but based on your travels, you've obviously got to experience so much more. What is something that you would say to someone to fully enthrall them in the idea of Africa, busting all of the myths that they've heard, all of the insecurities they may have about traveling to Africa? How would you convince them in a way?
Okay. It's such a dynamic place. You know, I think people do tend to think of Africa as one entity. I mean, I've heard people say, you know, somebody is from Africa, and I'll say, yeah, what country? And they'll go, Africa. And I'm like, which country? You know, so it's so Africa. It's so dynamic and so diverse. You know, it's just like there's something there for everybody. you know, and it's so different. Just you know, be open-minded, go. It's an adventure. You're going to see different things along the way, especially if you do an overland tour. Even if you don't like what you see today, you'll like what you see tomorrow. You know, it's so different. You know, I think South Africa, I mean, a good friend of mine from South Africa said to me, you know, that she thinks South Africa is not like the rest of Africa. South Africa, you know, the Rainbow Nation, it is, South Africa is like its own mixture of so many things in one country. You know, it's amazing. To me, South Africa is absolutely its own entity. You get so many different things within South Africa. And then you move out of South Africa and you get into Southern Africa, and that's different again. And then if you go to East Africa is completely different. And I was always say to people, don't expect East Africa is completely different to Southern Africa. And to me, it's much wilder. It's the real, to me, that's the real Africa. It's really, really wild. Whereas the Southern Africa is more, it's a bit more westernized, it's a bit more of a mix, even better roads. And it's, I would say to anybody, probably, if you wanted to ease yourself in, start with Southern Africa and build up to East Africa, but they're two completely different experiences. I would say to someone, there's something for everybody in Africa. So, you know, talk to someone who knows, and if you want to go, just go and see what it's like. You know, because there's definitely, it's the most dynamic, diverse continent on earth, and there is absolutely, you know, something for everybody in Africa. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for your insights. Everything that you shared is surely able to inspire somebody else, whether they are planning their first trip to Africa or whether they're thinking of coming back. I think that you have hit the nail on the head, and it's all going to go up from here for everybody thinking about going to Africa. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Nice to talk to you.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And the recording will be uploaded in a couple of hours. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Mishka. Bye.